Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Bill Kriva, and I'm here with you for another episode of the Chiropractic podcast. And with me here today is Dr. Tara Horrell, a very good friend of mine that I have known for over 20 years now.
Hey.
20, okay.
There's no need to tell people those.
Okay, we don't want to go there. All right, fair enough. We have had a lot of fun together down through the years, and a lot of great experiences. But we want to spend a little bit of time today talking with you in the audience about chiropractic philosophy and how important chiropractic philosophy is to being successful in practice. And to start, I want to share a little story with the audience. Years ago, I was a participant in a free CE program that was being put on around the country for chiropractors. There was a real estate development company that would foot the bill for chiropractors to attend continuing education classes for free. And in exchange, they had an opportunity to do a pitch to the chiropractors to get them to invest in their real estate company.
What a great idea.
That's a beautiful idea because they figured chiropractors had lots of money, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I was there representing AMC at the time. We had a booth there, and the woman who was coordinating this event came up to me unsolicited, and she said, I've never been exposed to chiropractors before. I don't know anything about chiropractic, but I've noticed something. And I said, what's that? And she said, I've noticed that the chiropractors that have a philosophical understanding of what they're doing, they understand chiropractic philosophy, are way more successful than the chiropractors that don't understand chiropractic philosophy. And that really struck me. Obviously, they're looking for investors, and They were finding the people who had the money to invest were the ones that were philosophically based. But it really struck me hard because there's a reason why chiropractic philosophy is important to our being able to be successful in practice. And it's important to know that philosophy. Unfortunately, there's an awful lot of docs who really aren't well versed at this point, and it's having an impact on their practice.
Well, I mean, if you just look at, because I work with students a lot, right? So if you look at the schools across the board, and we really look at the schools that are teaching chiropractic philosophy, it used to be 100% at one point in time, right? Mm-hmm. I'd say 100 and some odd plus years ago. And we've gotten to the point now where there's really, if we really look to the essence of chiropractic philosophy, we're really looking at about, I may be stretching a bit here, probably 3 to 4 schools that are really still teaching chiropractic philosophy, and that's narrowing every year. As folks want to learn more about different modalities and whatnot, it narrows the amount of time I find that they're spending on chiropractic and really learning not just the art or the science of chiropractic, but really what makes a chiropractor a chiropractor.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think it is? Why do you think the schools that were so rooted in philosophy in the early days and produced some tremendously strong chiropractors, leaders of our profession historically, have moved away from teaching the philosophy?
Well, it's like any chiropractor out there, right? If you find that you produce chiropractors who have great philosophy, but they lack the ability to communicate that philosophy in a way that makes sense to the general public. For example, I went to school at a particular school. I went to school at Palmer in Iowa. And I remember going back and having a conversation, or I didn't really have the conversation. It was a Lyceum event. And they said, you don't need to talk about subluxation. We just need to talk more about posture. That's what you need to focus on, because we did a Gallup poll that shows that people don't get the subluxation thing. We need to focus more on just talk about posture. And that's what's going to be important to the patients. That's what the polls show is important to the patients. They understand posture. And I got to admit, and I apologize, I left a little bit mad, actually really hot.
I don't blame you.
Because, again, if we lose that fundamental thing that makes us chiropractors, then what are we at that point, right? If we lose the foundation and the whole reason why we do the adjustment, then why do we do the adjustment?
Mm-hmm.
And how are we separate and distinct from any other profession out there that now does manual manipulation or mobility type
Mobilization.
right, mobilization
Yeah.
of the spine,
Yeah.
or mobilization under anesthesia, et cetera, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why? I honestly, I have a hard time figuring the motivation behind it, but I think it's just like a lot of chiropractors out there. Like I said, when you can't explain it, when you've had that rejection enough times, you go, well, why don't I just talk about something else
Right.
that they do seem to want and they do seem to understand.
Right. And if the doctor doesn't fully understand it, it's very difficult to explain that to the patient in a way that they understand it. And I would also suggest that one of the reasons we've moved away from a philosophical approach to practice is the insurance model that we've been dealing with for so many years, where we're looking
That's
at
still a thing.
It still is, yeah. Unfortunately, we have a lot of docs in AMC that are out of that game, and we are too in our office. But
Yeah.
but it has an impact because 6 visits, you get your 6 visits, and that's all you get. Then you got to beg for more. That has an impact as well. But coming back to understanding what we're doing with the adjustment, and I think that's a key factor in what this woman was talking about in success. Chiropractors who understand how chiropractic works, who understand chiropractic philosophy, practice very differently.
Yes.
They don't do the 6 visits or the quick adjustment and come back when you need it kind of thing, because that's not how the body works.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes time for healing to take place. And one of the things, and you were obviously very familiar with this, but within AMC, we were actually teaching classes on chiropractic management of visceral conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about how to manage things like ADHD and how to manage things like acid reflux and infertility and asthma and things like this.
Of course you were.
Yeah.
Seems like it would be a common idea that right?
You would think,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of what drives that is what was BJ doing back in the day, okay?
Yeah.
He was treating these kinds of things. He was treating mental illness. We've talked about that before on this podcast. It wasn't just a musculoskeletal rack a bone into position and get some mobility going. It was restoring health, restoring function in the body.
Right.
And if you practice that way with that understanding, it's a very different way of practicing than a quick pop on the neck and send them on their way.
Yeah.
And so, bottom line is it takes time for healing to take place. And I remember when I was teaching those classes on managing visceral conditions, and a chiropractor came up to me and he was in tears. And I was like, wow, I don't understand what's going on here. And I asked him, what's happening? He says, I'm a 2nd generation chiropractor. He said, I have never taken a patient past 10 visits in my entire career. I've been in practice for 20 years. I've never seen a visceral condition resolve as a result of my care. And he said, what you are teaching right now is stuff I needed to hear 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's completely transforming my understanding of what I'm doing with chiropractic. And he was so upset because he had lost the philosophical underpinnings of chiropractic, and he was practicing in an insurance model. That's all he'd ever known. And as a result, he was completely missing the opportunity that chiropractic offered to people. The good news is I saw him about a year later at another event, and he was so happy because he had changed completely his practice model. He got away from the insurance mindset. He was treating patients using an understanding it takes time for healing to take place and doing care plans and that kind of thing, and getting amazing results. And he was just listing off all of these visceral problems that he'd taken care of. So I guess my point is, gee whiz, you think his practice is more successful than what he was doing before? And do you think he's really truly in love with chiropractic now that he's tapped back into a philosophical understanding?
Well, I was talking to a room full of staff members and doctors yesterday, and I was talking about, I cannot imagine how frustrating it is to be a medical doctor and to work in that, and how, again, you have these folks that come in and they're, let's say for pain or for these visceral conditions. It's got to be the most frustrating thing in the world to be hunting and pecking to try to find the right medication that's going to suppress the symptoms of this patient, only to find once you've suppressed that symptom, now another pops up somewhere else. And now we're dealing not only with the other, once we've suppressed that one, something else pops up. And now we're dealing with the side effects that go along with that medication too. I just think that it feels for me like the most frustrating thing I can possibly think of. And I really feel bad about that because there's really not a resolution for them. So along that same lines, in the same vein, I really kind of feel sorry or feel bad for those chiropractors who don't understand that there's way more to chiropractic than just neck pain, back pain, and headaches. Because when the pain's gone, the patient's gone.
Yeah.
When the pain's not gone, the patient's
gone. Still gone, yeah.
And again, that can be such a difficult cycle. And then you see these folks with very little personal life because they're out there just burning, they're right. Because these patients are cycling through so quickly, they have to have this huge amount of new patients coming in the door just to keep that practice going. And again, we know that that's a recipe for burnout, especially when you're spending all that time on the front side to acquire the new patient. And then again, it's just a short-term sort of thing, not only for the financial side, but now you're looking at all those patients who now don't understand. So how many times do you see that a patient comes into your office and they've been to a chiropractor who maybe didn't understand the big idea of chiropractic, and now they say, well, people think, well, they're going to be upset with me whenever I tell them that they need more than this or whatever. My patient, those were the best patients for me. I loved it because they're like, well, why didn't anyone else ever tell me that this is what chiropractic was? They're actually overjoyed and they latch on to that principle of chiropractic, and they are now lifetime wellness chiropractic patients.
Yep.
And they get amazing results with all kinds of things besides back pain, all because they just finally knew that something else was possible. All you had to do was just tell them. So it's, like I said, it's that vicious cycle that it's concerning. It's concerning for the profession. It's concerning for the psyche of the chiropractor, right? And it's really concerning for the patients out there, because now we have this whole group of people without that education, and they don't know where to go to get anything different than that. Right.
And you hit on something you were just talking about, the burnout factor, and the fact that there are such a high percentage of our young chiropractors coming out of school who are not succeeding in practice. They're leaving the chiropractic profession within a couple years of graduation, because it's exactly what you're talking about. You're the hamster running in the wheel. You got to have a whole bunch of new patients all the time just to keep the lights on. You're not getting paid anything by insurance, and you don't, if you're not getting the philosophy in school, understand the power of what you have in your hands and the ability that you have to change lives and treat different types of conditions. And so, if you're looking ahead, it's pretty bleak. If you understand what chiropractic can do, you can explain it in a way that people understand it. You can get them into care and keep them in the office long enough to actually see results take place using the body's natural healing process. And while they're there, educate them about chiropractic further to the point that they decide it's something they want to do as a lifestyle. It's not come in and get the quick crack for the neck pain. This is a critically important part of my health and my overall lifestyle. Now you've got lifetime wellness patients in the office. What a wonderful way to practice, as opposed to being desperately needing the next insurance referral.
Well, not only that, it's a lot more inspiring way to practice, right? When you're seeing those miracles on a consistent basis and you're hearing those stories from the patients, especially because, look, folks, patients are out there and they are doing crazy things to get rid of their problems. I remember having a lady I went to church with back years ago who came in as a patient. This person was actually a physician's assistant, and she came in and said, well, it started with carpal tunnel, so I had bilateral carpal tunnel surgery, and I think she'd had that a couple of times. Then they decided that it was her elbows. Her nerve was in the wrong position. So they repositioned her
I actually
nerve.
watched them do that once.
What an act of futility. Anyway, so they did that on both elbows. And then she'd had at least one surgery on each shoulder, because then, oddly, her shoulders started hurting. And again, I take a picture of her and she has an S curve for a neck. Her brainstem is just, choking for life. Her innate intelligence just can't get the signal to those areas. And I'm, hey, what are they doing to you? I can't even imagine the downtime in life from that. She had children. I can't imagine, like, what do you do with your kids? You can't hold them or do your activities that you need to do whenever you've had surgery on every joint of your upper appendage multiple times. So lots of life value lost, right?
Yeah.
And now you're out. I can't even imagine the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of surgeries. Again, they were well-meaning doctors thinking they're doing the right thing, but it's like ripping out all the wiring in your entire house or building because the light doesn't work, right? Why don't we try?
I'm laughing a little bit as you're sharing this story. I mentioned I actually watched them do that surgery when I was a student. I had access to the surgical suite at Davenport Medical Center. And the neurologist, after they got done with the surgery, asked me, what I thought. Said, "You think that was pretty neat to see that?" And I looked at him and I said, "Before you did the surgery, what did the neck look like?" And he got really mad. He got really ticked because I had the audacity. I was a chiropractic student to ask that question. They never looked at the neck.
Right.
They never looked at the neck. Anyway, so let me ask you this question, kind of changing gears a little bit. What advice would you have for the people, the doctors that are listening to this podcast right now, on how do you go about digging into chiropractic philosophy? How do you get a more solid foundation in what we do?
Boy, that is a question, right? And when I talk to chiropractic students about chiropractic schools, I always tell them, look, no matter which school you go to, you're going to want to go to whatever school you choose, but then you need to go and find the philosophy club or a philosophy-based technique club immediately. From day one, you want to find either upper cervical or Gonstead or something where they're dealing with this philosophy on a regular basis, so that you're feeding your mind and your purpose and your understanding of chiropractic from day one. So that would be the first thing that I would say is, okay, well, you want to feed your chiropractic philosophy first. Get around people who have a great understanding and a depth in chiropractic philosophy, right? Next, I don't know, look up some of the greats like B.J. Palmer, Jim Sigafus, Dr. Owen.
Yep.
He was a great philosophy mentor for me. Rob Sinnott has been a great mentor. They actually have the adaptability symposium, which basically, again, the nervous system and adaptation is what we do. It's what we restore, about. Right? Yep. So they have a great program. They actually just had that, I think, last weekend or the weekend before. But they're doing that on the campus at Palmer. So seek out. You're going to have to look for it, right? You're going to have to look for these different organizations that are really continuing that philosophy, and attach yourself with those people. Read books about philosophy. Any green book would be a great start, either by one of the Palmers or Dr. Barge's books are great and steeped in philosophy. Stevenson's text, or like I said, Rob Sinnott has got those 33 principles in his book as well. Those are just some examples of things that I would do, but really nothing gets you further faster than getting around people who have the philosophy that you want to continue to develop.
Yeah, amen. And coming back to the 33 principles, 100% agree with that one. The chiropractic textbook, Stevenson's textbook that was used at Palmer as the core curriculum for philosophy for many, many years. It's a great summary of what B.J. Palmer was developing and teaching in the beginning days of chiropractic that formed the foundation for our philosophy. And I would encourage folks to seek that out. Get a copy. You can buy them. They have new copies out there now. I was actually encouraged. We've got Northwestern University in the Twin Cities, and I went into their bookstore, and they actually had green books for sale.
That's great.
In the Northwestern bookstore. Find these things. When I was at Palmer Davenport, they didn't have green books available for sale.
Really?
I was in the back corner of the library where all the dust collected. That's where the green books were on the shelves. And I went in there as a student, and I just pick them off the shelf and start reading. That's how I got introduced into chiropractic philosophy. So, for folks that are trying to figure out, where is this? Go to the green books, pull them out, read them. BJ was a stream of consciousness writer. He was all over the planet. So some of the reading can be challenging, but like I said, Stevenson is a good place to start. Virgil Strang, who was the president of Palmer when I graduated, wrote a good introductory philosophical book for chiropractic, and that was the first chiropractic book I ever got from my chiropractor when I said I'm interested in being a chiropractor. He gave me Dr. Strang's book.
What's it called?
The Essential Principles of Chiropractic.
Very nice.
And it was fantastic. I read it and I said, how come I've never heard this before? How come I've never seen any of this stuff before in my life? So coming back to the main theme here, this is essential. This is the lifeblood of being a chiropractor in practice, successfully in practice, loving practice, having a blast, impacting lives the way that we all should be able to do through our practices if we just understood what we have in our hands.
Well, again, it ups your conviction for helping people, right? It really drives you and motivates you on a daily basis whenever you really understand what you're doing. And again, you see the world out there and the mess that people are in health-wise. We're not getting healthier in the United States, and we spend the most money out of the industrialized nations on health. Yet we're what number as far as health goes?
I think it was like, 70 something?
We're way down down the spectrum. So again, it's not the money that we're spending. It's not working. What we're doing isn't working. The folks out there need something different. I mean, I was one of those people, right? Where does my chiropractic conviction come from? I could have someone sitting here in front of me and they could say, that's not chiropractic. That's not how chiropractic works. It doesn't help organ problems, whatever. They can say whatever they like because I had the experience, right?
Yep.
I had the experience that I had pain when I was 17 years old that ran down my arm. I went to the chiropractor. Not only did I get rid of the neck pain, but I'd had urinary tract infections that were recurrent every month to 2 months for I think 3 or 4 years by that point in time. And I went to the doctor's office. I'm like, why does this keep happening? And they said, oh, you're just prone. So basically you're just a broken person. This is going to be your path for the rest of your life. Oh, so much hope. So much hope restored. And look, this chiropractor that I went to said, yeah, you have this problem down your lower back. Do you have any urinary problems? And I said no, because right that minute, to me, an infection wasn't a urinary problem, right? I had no understanding, really. Even though he said the things and he tried, I didn't have enough understanding to connect the dots at that point in time. But 3 years later, when I still didn't have any urinary tract infections, and I found that those cranberry pills, and I was like, what did I take those for again? Oh yeah, wait a minute. When was the last time that's happened? I mean, I would wait until I was urinating blood before I went to that's how much I liked going to the medical doctor.
Yeah,
so I hated it. So again, when I say that I was saved by chiropractic care, and 3 years later, I was like, oh, I didn't even remember having it. that's profound, because it was a huge difficulty in my life. But once I connected the dots, and I didn't do that because the chiropractor connected them for me. I did that because of my anatomy and physiology background. And, there was no healthcare class. There was no education there to connect those dots for me. I just one day finally got enough head knowledge to go along with my experiential knowledge, and poof, oh, that's how that works. And it took that much for me to want to be a chiropractor when someone said, well, wouldn't you rather help your friends and family stay healthy naturally instead of killing them with drugs and surgery? It didn't take a lot of thought. Yes, that's exactly what I want to do, because I'd had the experience. And I think I'm not saying that you need to have that experience in order to be a chiropractor, but I think that does certainly come with a certain amount of conviction.
Bingo.
Behind that philosophy.
Bingo. That word conviction is a biggie. And I got a very similar story, that I went for sciatica, which would be something that, chiropractors would be treating, basically. When I went in for sciatica, which the medical doctor said, we can't figure out what's causing the problem, so you're going to have to live with it. Okay, can't help you. 7 years I went that way. The chiropractor figured it out and got rid of the sciatica, but in the process, I'd had asthma for years, and the asthma went away at that point in time. And the same thing, didn't connect the dots until I got to chiropractic school, and I went, wait a minute, he had been adjusting my thoracics as well. But here's the point. In your case and in my case, both, they didn't explain to us what they were doing and how that adjustment could affect the urinary tract or could affect the lungs. They didn't make that connection as doctors, and therefore we didn't know. We, and this is for all of us that are listening to this podcast, have a responsibility and an obligation to explain this stuff to our patients so they get it, so they understand what chiropractic can do for them. And when they start seeing these changes, when I was teaching the visceral condition class, I told the doctors, ask about visceral conditions. What are they dealing with? Get that in the history, then track it and see what happens. That's where you get the convicted long-term patients, wellness patients. That's where, as a chiropractor, you know that you know that you know that you can help these types of problems because you've done it, you've seen it over and over again. So we have an obligation as a profession to learn this, and then we have an obligation as a profession to share this.
Well, I know where I learned, everything I learned about communicating chiropractic to a patient, I learned from Aligned, and from Dr. Owen. And, what's amazing about that is that, again, I fully knew chiropractic whenever I got out of chiropractic school. And like I said, I was in an associateship whenever I met Dr. Owen and was exposed to the Aligned system. But I remember sitting there, and I'm sure you do too. Remember your first, back then it was called boot camp. And I remember I had tried over and over again to explain chiropractic to my friends and family while I was in chiropractic school, and was met with like the
blank stare
and me really angry and frustrated and, almost really hurt, because I'm like, I don't understand why nobody is getting this. And then I sat in that class, and, I'm just a little farm girl from Southern Illinois. It was so darn logical and very simple, but it's a logic and a simplicity that I never would have come up with on my own. That really then I had the conviction for chiropractic and that philosophy, and then I was all in, fully convicted on the patient education side of things and what we were learning in Aligned, because I'd already seen how defunct I was at that beforehand, and it really was a game changer for me that way too. I don't know, how did you have the same experience? Is that where you learned to
the ability to explain it? I'll tell you what, the eye opener for me was Dr. Strang's book, because you said it. It was so simple. It was so direct. He said it very clearly in the book. And I was an engineer. I don't know, I didn't mention that to the podcast, but I was an engineer, and it just snapped into place. I got it. I understood it. And I, from that point, could explain it in ways that people could understand. But that was it. It was his book. And how many people have actually picked up that doggone book and read it? It's not a big one. It's a great place to get started. So I think in wrapping this up, I think we've had a really good discussion about how important philosophy and understanding our chiropractic philosophy is to being successful in practice, more so to being fulfilled as a doctor of chiropractic and understanding what we do and why we do it and the impact that it truly has on our patients.
It's what makes it fun.
It makes it a blast.
What fun is it otherwise?
Getting out of bed in the morning, get to go adjust people, woo, and improve lives and restore health. That's what it's all about. So, Dr. Horrell, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today to talk about this. Yeah, and I sure hope that those of you who are listening to this podcast got something out of this. And I would encourage you, go do a little bit of digging. Go get Stevenson's textbook. Do a little bit of research into B.J. Palmer. Start relearning what we knew as chiropractors back in the beginning and the stuff that propelled us to where we are today, and reclaim that heritage and reclaim that understanding.
Well, what we knew in the beginning is still being backed up with research today.
Bingo.
So.
Those guys were 150 years ahead of their time, and we're still learning that. So, all right. I hope that you're blessed by this podcast, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
See ya.
See ya.